For those that have been listening to the Curious Builder podcast, you know how much I love the Contractor Coalition Summit. It's been the single biggest force multiplier in my business over 21 years. We're excited to announce again that we're coming back to Chicago, November 7th through the 10th. All the details can be found at thecontractorcoalitionsummit.com. And under the promo code for a $2,500 discount, type in Curious Builder. We'll see you in Chicago.
What I'll call the blue chippers out there, what I'll call the guys that have been doing it for so long, the best of the best, it doesn't mean just because they're the best that they're going to fit well within your culture, within that location on the school bus. Oftentimes those guys, gals might come with some of the most radical personalities, and that can be abrasive and detrimental to your team.
Welcome to Curious Builder Podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Today I've ambushed Adam Copenhaver from CopeGrand Homes in Charleston?
Charleston, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Charleston. So we met at Contractor Coalition, but I've known of you guys you and your twin brother here for a couple of years. And we're actually today's Zoom call was really supposed to be we're talking about launching a Curious Collective in Charleston next year. And we won't talk about that on live. That'll just have to be stay tuned for the audience. But I was just mentioning to you that we're doing a series called Losers or Winners. And you were like, well, I've got a loser story for him. Like, hang on, we got to record this. So in the spirit of our Losers or Winners, basically, if you're tuning in for the first time, that basically just interviewing owners across the country. I'm convinced that we all fail before we succeed. And so we all have tons of fail stories that, we've either learned from something or we're in the process of learning from it. So what are some that come to mind, Adam?
Yeah, definitely, Mark, you did ambush me. So this is this is a
hot take.
This is going to be fun and a hot take. And as I was starting to inquire about the boundaries and pull them out of the question, just knowing your style, I think it's actually pretty loose. So the failures, I think that I continue to make one. It's kind of funny. What's my biggest one? The one that I continue to make. The sins that we continue to make as business owners. The decisions that continue to get in the way of things that are best practices, but are oftentimes difficult to either pull off because of your own resources or pull off because of limited resources. And particularly what came to mind was my team, our team at CopeGrand. And I would say big win, success, is that team has transformed itself. The original OGs on the team to where they're at now and continues with every single hire to improve. But that was the biggest failure for years is how to attract, how to acquire, and how to maintain the absolute best talent. And I've come to realize too recently that, I guess ever so recently, more and more every year, is that's my biggest opportunity and also my biggest failure as a leader is how to attract them, how to generate them, how to grow them, and how to retain them. And so I just want to celebrate that I've come a long way. I still have a long way to go, but I'm also much better at it than we ever have been. And so it's tough to recognize. And I know most of us, I would imagine just my peers, thinking about some of my peers right now, that they're probably shaking their head too, although it's not something that we talk about often enough.
Well, I think the one thing to have some grace with yourself with is that, how much of, let's say, there's a great quote. I was just talking about a culture trumps strategy or culture eats strategy for breakfast. And if you have a strong culture, not that you don't need a strategy, but a strong culture is more important than strategy. You can have the best strategy in the world, but if you have the wrong butts in the wrong seats, like your team's not going to perform. If you have a football team and you got nothing but wide receivers, you're going to get pushed off the line and no one's going to throw the ball. You're going to have a lot of fast people. That's about it. And so, thinking about this culture thing, just thinking of your question, I agree. I've made a lot of good hires, but I think I made a lot of lucky hires. I don't think I had any idea what I was doing. I think I just went with my gut and hired people and hope for the best. And that worked out. Honestly, that's mostly worked out. I have had 3 people that I can think of that were poor fits, but I don't know if it was because of me or was it because of them. And I don't know if we'll ever know the answer. It just ended up not being a good fit. And I heard a quote recently that of a good friend of mine, Drew Beeson, shared with that I'm just obsessed with. He said, be easy on people and hard on the problems. And I think too often, if I was to look backwards, I bet I was hard on people when things weren't going well, and I should have been hard on the problem. And so if I was to be honest with myself on your question, the 3 people that I'm thinking about that weren't good fits, I just they probably just weren't a good fit. That's not their fault. It's also not my fault. It just is what it is. And the problem was it was sort of incompatible. And so really what we should have been addressing is the issue rather than the person. And maybe the issue means that the person has to go bye-bye. And Brad Levitt always talks about be quick to hire. No, what does he say? Slow to hire and quick to fire. And I joke, I say, I've always done the opposite. I'm quick to hire and slow to fire.
Yeah, I think that we do. I think that I can also say that too, which I think Jim Collins also said that as well. And it's all about stacking the right people on the bus. When I think about it, the way that we used to hire was, hey, how well did we get along with this person in the interview? In hindsight, that's like personal gratification. Like you get to hire somebody that you really enjoy being around, as that might be the litmus test for how well they might perform in a particular seat on your bus within your organization. It sounds like, Mark, you got really lucky. It sounds like you've been really lucky to find those. Maybe you're driving the bus on the right side of town, picking up these folks. Not for all of us, right? Not for all of
Well,
us.
I mean, I've made my share of mistakes. My new theory is I have actually made my last hire I didn't make, my teammate. Even though I'm a small team of just five, I've kind of purposed that I'll never make a hire again in my career. That, God willing, I want to build for 20 years. I'm gonna have my team do the hiring because they're I think and my other joke is like if you don't like them, hey, you hired them. so
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so but the idea is like I think after your culture is pretty set and people kind of know what the vibe is, your team knows what to expect. And Brad Levitt shared a story, I think at Contractor Coalition when we were in Omaha, and he had just shared that he just got a notice on his phone that his team just hired someone. He goes, I didn't even know we had a position available. I didn't even know that we hired him. Like his team informed him, like, hey, we've got a new person. Now his operation is much bigger than mine, but I find that sort of amusing and also aspirational. Like, hey, the team recognized they looked at their backlog, they looked at their team's need, and the team sort of stepped up. I think that's pretty cool.
yeah. I think that's pretty cool too. Not only using your resources, but I might go back to like stacking your odds. I really enjoy the opportunity to stack our odds of success. And one of the newer things that I'm into is it's an assessment. It's a cultural index, I think is what it's called. So a culture index, it's a Myers-Briggs type of spinoff of what are you inclined to be like in situations? What are you interested in? What's your natural personality? What's the personality that you think that you need to have at work? So I've been really diving into my own in self-reflection, realizing, holy smokes, that is, this thing is pretty darn accurate. And so is it 100% fail safe? No. Does it have a record of 80, some 90% accuracy on predicting somebody's tendencies in a certain role or position? Absolutely. And so what we're doing now is paying attention a lot more to those facets of how can we stack the odds to make sure that this next hire, because what I'll call the blue chippers out there, what I'll call the guys that have been doing it for so long, the best of the best, it doesn't mean just because they're the best that they're going to fit well within your culture, within that location on the school bus. Oftentimes, those guys, gals might come with some of the most radical personalities, and that can be abrasive and detrimental to your team. So, yeah, this opportunity to learn that I might have been using the wrong hiring techniques of how well do we get along together and how much experience do you say you have as a litmus for whether you're the right person for the right seat on the bus. I mean, it's been going to the wayside for years, but I'm just really enlightened these days that there is a whole science to it of stacking the odds, and I'm excited about that possibility for us.
Have you read Malcolm Gladwell's book Blink?
Yes, yes, I have. But I'm probably due for a good refresher. But what was your takeaway?
Well, just thinking about what you just mentioned about stacking the odds, I think don't underestimate your gut either. I think a lot of times we have a take on something and we're sort of taught as kids, or at least I was. I think most people were just like, don't judge a book by the outside cover. Except we all judge a book by the outside cover. And so I think about like literally like Malcolm Gladwell's book, like has a good artist who drew on it. And it's like, yes, I know Malcolm Gladwell is a phenomenal author, but I'm like, oh, this book art is also sort of interesting. And so, like I have little kids, like there are certain books they won't read because the art on the front, they're not interested in. Like they're making a judgment. We are incredible at making quick judgments. It's up to our processor to decide if that judgment was good or not. But I do think we have a lot of, obviously in the world that we're in now with virtual communication, we miss out on a lot of body language and we miss out on a lot of nonverbals where I have a client situation right now where every time that I am with the client, he's virtual. and his wife is always in person. And it's just the circumstance of his job. It's fine, and we'll work with it. It's not like I could tell him to change his job, but there is a lot that is missed. And so I don't know if he'd be able to name it, but he can sort of feel it. I sort of feel it. We don't have that same way to connect, in the same, because, our blink, our read on people is somewhat muted. At least with a camera and a video, you get some of it. But if it was just audio, or like an email, all of us have had texts and emails that come off very abrasive. And then you call them and you're like, did not sound nearly that abrasive. It's like when your wife says, come home now. First, if I said, Adam, come home now, versus if you read it, come home now, you're like, why is she yelling at me? and so anyway, the whole point of the reason I brought it up was interviewing people. In that book, they had the deal where they had 12 people to hire, and like a group of 6 people spent an hour with those 12 people, and then another control group spent 6 seconds with those people. They all hired the same people. Like, that's
I don't
wild.
remember that book. I am definitely gonna have to.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm not saying you don't. I like your process though. Stack the odds.
Yeah.
Like a,
Yeah, stacking the odds, and then also getting 6 people to make that decision for me. So I don't trust my gut; I can trust theirs.
This episode is brought to you by Olive & Vine Socials. If you're a builder, a designer, an architect looking to grow your brand without dancing on TikTok or spending your whole life on social media, listen up. Olive & Vine Social specializes in Pinterest marketing, blogging, and email strategy for luxury home brands. Did you know that Pinterest is second only behind Google in search power engine? We've been able to use it for the Curious Builder brand, and it's dramatically changed who we reach and how we reach them. They help you turn your beautiful work into strategic, SEO-driven content that drives real traffic and connects you with your ideal clients without burning you out. Ready to grow smarter and not harder? Visit oliveandvinesocials.com and tell them the Curious Builder sent you. This episode is brought to you by Adaptive. If you're still chasing checks and juggling spreadsheets, it's time to upgrade. Adaptive is revolutionizing how builders get paid with AI-powered bill pay, automated draws, one-click payments, and built-in lien waivers. Faster payments, fewer headaches, and total visibility. Adaptive takes care of the back-end chaos so you can focus on what you do best, building. We've used Adaptive for 2.5 years and trust them to keep our projects moving and payments flowing. Learn more at adaptive.build and simplify the pay process today. For more information, you can also listen to episode 10 and episode 15.
Right?
how out of curiosity, I know you have a twin brother. How similar are the both of you
Actually,
in terms of like personality and the way you hire and run stuff?
Yeah, for sure. But I can also relate that to the culture index that we had both taken as well. I've always known that we're on the same wavelength. We've got the same personalities. We've got similar drive. We've got a lot of the same education, and we've got a lot of the same passions too. So we're pretty darn close. The cultural index definitely said so too. So the things that we're inclined to do, our personalities from that assessment was revealing to say, hey, yeah, you're actually not that far off, and you do work well together. So.
You know, it's funny, just on a side note, I don't think I told you this. When we were at Contractor Coalition, I didn't know at the time you were a twin. And so I think your brother one of you guys came a day or two later, right?
Yep. He came a day.
And it was so funny because like I can tell the difference between the two of you, just the way you carry yourself. And it just, I actually had a few twins growing up. And so it's like, I don't know, I just, one of my tennis partners, his brother had an identical twin, and no one could tell them apart. And I'm like, they don't even look alike. I don't think, your twin looks like you, but I feel like you're very different people. Anyway, long story short, I'm sitting there, and I'm sure this has happened to other people, and I'm looking at it, and I didn't actually meet you. I hadn't interviewed you yet that day. And then like 2 days later, I'm like, man, he definitely looks a little different. Like, I don't know, did he sleep different? Like, is he dressing different? Like, something was just different. I couldn't tell what it was. And then it threw me for a loop when I saw both of you sitting at 2 different tables, and I was like, whoa, how has it taken me 3 days to figure out that there's 2 of you? Anyway, it was just kind of a funny,
Good.
funny
You got some
moment.
grace. You were not in the Matrix, right? You didn't.
Yeah. Wait, where's the black cat here?
No, it is actually really cool though to have an opportunity to work with a brother, but also twin brother. I usually like sharing with our clients that it's a blessing to be at 2 different places at once. And I feel like Ben and I do operate in that, where I mentioned we're on the same wavelength. We know what each other's not specifically thinking, but in this scenario, in this situation, I know how he would react, and he knows how I would react and what we would do about it. So we've got a very similar problem solving, opportunity finding mentality. So yeah, it does help us achieve more in the same amount of time.
How, going back to your original kind of fail, I think we all fail with the hiring cycle. It kind of continues, goes around. What are some other, how you've been building for, how long have you been building?
Yeah, as CopeGrand, we've been building for 10 years. Yeah.
10 years.
Mhm.
What other, can you think of any other times that you've sort of had a failure or a setback that you feel like now today, because of that failure, you actually are more successful because of it? For instance, I'll just give you a primer. Like for me, it was, in 2008, I had a home, and figuring out a way to survive with this model home when I had no money, it was super painful. But a lot of those lessons I still use today. And so that failure really sort of laid the groundwork with some mentality as well as some purpose and some drive. Maybe I would have had it, maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. All you can do is like, hey, that was the experience I had, and I was able to, make some lemonade out of some serious lemons.
Yeah, I think that I never had. I'm an engineer by training, so my education's in engineering, and in engineering, you do not learn how to run a business, and so and you don't learn how to become an effective communicator in business either. Everything's technical. Everything's kind of shorthand. We get into the details, but it isn't, sunshine and roses and how to carry on relationship type of conversations. So I think that learning, just jumping into what we did with our business and custom homes, and we started off small for sure. We started off with a few projects, and there were some great clients, and then you run into a rough patch at some point, sorry, because you either take on too much, or you didn't budget correctly for something, or you didn't follow the same process that gave you predictable and repeatable results the last time, or you've made a new hire and they want to run their own direction and do it this way and do it that way. I think we figured out really early on that you could not have a chance at operating successfully in this business without a system of procedures that the whole team would rally around, and that system and the procedures needs to grow along with the business and adjust so that you can maximize your results. And so just again this morning at our team breakfast, we're focusing constantly on training, updating our procedures. What are we talking about for systems with, to really just generate predictable and repeatable results? If we can do that, we can mitigate the amount of chaos in our business. And the painful ones are the ones that you lost money on, always. You and I have shared stories about that previously, where it depends on what type of moral ethics you have. I think that the more and higher moral ethics you have, the more checks you've probably written in this business. I don't like to admit it, but Ben and I have written a lot of checks, right? Or we haven't collected as much money. And does that hurt the business? And do you learn from that? Absolutely. Would I have been able to do that without that experience? I think it would have been a lot tougher
It's
experience.
so funny. I know the audience can't chime in, but right now I thought of 3 examples of checks that I wrote, to what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, and because you're right. I mean, when it costs you something, when there's a scar, an injury, or in this case, financial, seems to be the financial whip is the one that we remember the most, in a certain situation. It's funny. I think that's what's valuable about podcasts and sharing stories is your story just triggered 3 of mine. It sort of kind of brings back to focus that, I mean, you could almost go to say that the bigger, I mean, this could maybe be incorrect, but like the bigger check you write, the more you're not integrity but you get the point. Like if you're willing to write a big check because you felt it was the right thing to do, you likely have a pretty high degree of integrity.
Yeah, and I also realized through that process that after writing some checks and understanding that it might not have always been something that I caused myself. In particular, it might have been something that one of my teammates caused, and I had no idea. But as the owner of the company, you've got to step up and do the right thing and be representative to your clients. And so we began talking about those checks that we were writing as the first time we need to write one for a new thing, it's an investment. That check, whatever that amount was, whether it was 10 grand, whether it was 1 or 25, it didn't matter. I'm always happy to make the investment the first time if we couldn't foresee that it was coming. The second time, it's always a cost. It's always a cost. And there's a cost to be paid with all those outside of investment. So we made the most of it the first time. We talked about it. We communicated. We learned from it. We put a process and a system in place to mitigate the opportunity of it happening again. But yeah, the second time, that's when it really,
That
really.
reminds me of an old adage when I I trusted someone to do something, and I remember my dad, who was a builder for a long time, told me, he said, first time it's on them, second time that's on you. It's basically a shorter version of what you just said of just
Mhm.
like, the first one was the learning experience. You didn't know what you didn't know. Now you know. It's like sticking your hand in a rabid dog's mouth. Hey, I guess as a little kid, you didn't know the dog was going to bite you, but you do it again. Yeah, you're kind of an idiot.
The first one was an investment, so you didn't have to do it again. Yeah.
That's funny. Oh man. Thanks for being such a willing loser as winner series member here. So you definitely
Yeah.
got ambushed. I think I'm gonna have to do that from now on. When I schedule our meetings, I'm gonna make the first half hour just be a hot take on the podcast and just be like, just because anyway, we'll see how it goes. That would actually be a whole other series. Like just we'll call it ambush the podcast. But most owners can roll with those kinds of questions. So I appreciate your willingness.
Yep, no problem. Happy to participate.
All right. Well, if you're first tuning into the Curious Builder podcast for the first time, Thursdays is our Losers is Winner series, along with some side interviews. We'll have Adam and his brother on at a future date. Big thanks to CopeGrand Homes and to Adam Copenhaver or Copenhaver. We'll see you soon, buddy.
Great, thanks.
This episode is brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors. I've used Pella for 21 years as the exclusive window company on every one of my builds. When people ask me who I trust for windows and doors, it's Pella, every time. Their craftsmanship, their innovation, the top-tier service make them a no-brainer for any custom home builder or designer who demand the best. Whether you're designing something bold or building something with timeless elegance, Pella has you covered. They're also the only window company that has a lifetime warranty on all of their windows. I've gotten to know all of their people at Pella Corporate, as well as locally here at Pella Northland. I'm proud to call them our partners and our friends. Visit Pella.com to learn more and connect with your local reps today. Also, for more information, you can listen to episode 1, where I interview their founders, as well as episode 109, where we talk about the innovation at Pella. Thanks for tuning in to the Curious Builder podcast. If you like this episode, do us a favor, share it with 3 other business owners. The best way that we can spread what we're doing is by word of mouth, and with your help, we can continue to help other curious builders expand their business. Please share it with your friends, like and review online, and thanks again for tuning in.